A boot kicked the heavy oak door open. Splinters flew across the floor. Men spun around, hands grabbing for swords. A goblet smashed against the wall. Wine ran down the stone. 12 guards drew their blades at once. None of them moved forward. They just stood there, breathing hard. Eyes wide. Mouths open. A figure filled the doorway. Tall. Broad-shouldered. A long black cloak heavy with road dust. Eyes that glowed gold in the torchlight. Wolf eyes. The man at the head of the table stood up slowly. He was wearing a golden crown. Not his crown. The figure in the doorway took one step inside. The torches flickered. Every man in the room felt their knees go weak. His name was Chaol Drakemore, the true Alpha King. And he had come home. What he did next would tear the throne room apart. Stay with me on this one. 10 years before that boot ever touched the door, Chaol Drakemore had been the most feared alpha in the Wolfblood kingdoms. He stood 7 feet tall in his shifted form. He could outrun a horse. He had ended the border wars in a single night, walking into an enemy camp alone and walking out at dawn with the heads of 3 rival warlords on a leather strap. His people called him the Black Sun. His enemies called him a monster. Both groups agreed on one thing. When Chaol Drakemore wanted you dead, you were already dead. You just hadn't fallen yet. Then came the Battle of Black Hollow. That night, Chaol's younger brother Vorik rode at his side. They had grown up together, trained together, bled together. Vorik had pledged himself to Chaol's reign on the night their father died. But sometime between the first horn and the last, Vorik slipped a Sylviroot blade into Chaol's back. Now here's the thing. Sylviroot is to a wolf what venom is to man. It burns from the inside. It blocks the shift. It freezes the heart. Chaol went down in the snow. The last thing he saw was his brother's face above him. Crying, apologizing, saying it had to be done. Then he was dragged away. What the kingdom heard the next morning was a different story. The Alpha King had fallen in battle, buried in the northern wastes. Long live the new king. But Vorik never made it to the throne. Within the year, a southern lord named Marek rode into the castle with 100 men and cut Vorik down. Or so everyone thought. Marek took the crown. He took the castle. And he took Chaol's mate. Her name was Lyra Vassin. She had been Chaol's mate since they were both 17. They had been bonded under a blood oak in the old way. The kind of bond that does not break, even when one of them dies. She did not consent to the marriage with Marek. She had a knife at her throat and a kingdom watching. She said yes. 3 years later, she had a son. A boy with eyes the color of melted gold. Marek told everyone the boy was his. Believe me, Marek lied. Because Chaol did not die in the snow. He crawled for 2 miles. Then he was found by an old Sheolf shaman named Greta, who lived alone on the edge of the frozen sea. She kept him alive for 10 years. She drew the Sylviroot out of his blood, drop by drop, with rituals so old most wolves had forgotten the names of the gods they spoke to. She taught him things that had not been taught in 300 years. By the time Chaol walked out of her hut, he was not the same wolf who had gone in. He was something older, something deeper, something the kingdom had no word for anymore. 3 months ago, word reached the frozen sea. A merchant told Greta about a boy in the southern castle. A boy with golden eyes. A boy the queen would not let any man near, even her own husband. Greta turned to Chaol and said one sentence. She said, "Go home." He walked south for 9 weeks. He did not run. He did not ride. He walked. He wanted his enemies to feel him coming. 3 nights ago, He reached the woods outside the castle. He watched. He saw Marek drinking in the great hall. Loud, sloppy, surrounded by men who laughed at his jokes the way men laugh at jokes they are afraid not to laugh at. He saw Lyra walk through the courtyard. Thinner than he remembered. A silver locket at her throat. Her own locket. The one he had given her on their bonding night. She had kept it. After everything. She had kept it. And he saw the boy. The boy was running across the courtyard, chasing a wooden wolf on a stick. Nobody else was watching him. He fell. He scraped his knee. He stood up, looked at the blood, and smiled. A wolf cub's smile. The smile of a child who has already started to feel the shift coming. Cale stood in the dark for a long time after that. Then he went back to the woods, slept 4 hours, sharpened his blade, and waited for the right night. The right night was tonight. And now we are back at the door. Marek's voice cracked when he tried to laugh. He stood at the head of the long banquet table, one hand on the back of his chair, the other reaching for the wine goblet that wasn't there anymore. "Whoever you are," Marek said, "you have made a serious mistake." Cale did not answer. He took another step forward. His boots made no sound on the marble. The torches on the wall to his left went out. Just like that. Like something invisible had walked past them. A guard at the front broke first. He charged. Cale did not even look at him. His left hand came up. The fingers had already lengthened into claws. He caught the guard by the throat in mid-stride, lifted him off the floor, and threw him sideways into the stone column behind him. The column cracked. The guard didn't get up. 2 more guards came at once. Cale shifted. Not all the way. Just enough. His shoulders broadened. His jaw extended. His eyes burned brighter. His teeth came forward. The first guard's sword broke against his forearm. Cale grabbed him by the helmet and drove him face first into the table. Wood splintered. The guard slid down, with the broken edge of the table still wrapped around his head. The second guard swung high. Cale ducked under the swing, came up under his arm, and twisted. Something snapped that should not have snapped. The guard screamed once and stopped. 3 guards in 9 seconds. The other 9 took a step back. Together, like one man. Marek's hand finally found what he was reaching for. Not the goblet. The sword on the table. He drew it. The blade was thin. Etched. Pale. Even in the torchlight, you could see the silver veining along the edge. Silverroot. Cale saw it and stopped walking. Marek smiled. Some of the color came back into his face. "You remember this, don't you?" Marek said. "Your brother left it behind. After he stuck it in your back." Cale said nothing. "I had it cleaned," Marek said. "I had it sharpened. I've been waiting 10 years for the chance to use it on the man who would not stay dead." He came around the table. The guards moved with him. They did not charge. They formed a half circle. They were going to let Marek do this himself. Cale let him come. When Marek was 3 steps away, he lunged. The point of the Silverroot blade went straight for Cale's heart. Cale moved sideways. Not a lot. A few inches. Enough. The blade passed his ribs and bit into the wood of the door behind him. Marek's whole arm went forward with it. He was off balance for half a second. Half a second was enough. Cale's right hand came around. He caught Marek's wrist. He squeezed. Marek's mouth opened. The bones in his hand cracked one after another, like dry sticks under a boot. The Silverroot blade fell to the floor. Cale let go. Marek staggered backward, cradling the ruined hand. His face was white. He was looking past Kale now, looking at the doorway, looking for someone to save him. That was when the voice came from the staircase. "Stop!" Every head turned. She was standing at the top of the wide stone staircase, one hand on the rail. Long dark hair. A pale gown. The silver locket at her throat caught the torchlight and threw it back in a single bright point. Kale had stopped breathing. She came down the stairs slowly. Her eyes never left him. "Kale," she said. Just his name. Like a prayer she had been saying for 10 years and had finally been allowed to say out loud. Behind her, halfway up the stairs, a small figure stepped out from behind a curtain. A boy, maybe 7 years old. Tousled brown hair. A wooden wolf in his hand. Eyes like melted gold. The boy looked at Kale. Kale looked at the boy. Marek saw his moment. He turned and ran. He shouted 3 words at the bell rope hanging in the alcove. "Sound the call." A guard yanked the rope. The bell on the south tower started to ring. Then a second bell. Then a third. Then the great iron bell in the keep itself, the one that had not been rung in 50 years. Kale knew that sound. Every wolf in the castle knew that sound. It was not a call for guards. It was a call for the army. Marek and the surviving guards retreated through the side door and slammed it shut. A bar dropped on the other side. For a long moment, the only sound in the great hall was the bell. Then the bell stopped too, and the great hall was quiet. Lyra came down the last 3 steps. She did not run. She walked. When she reached the floor of the hall, she stopped about 10 feet away from Kale. He didn't move toward her. He couldn't. He looked down at the floor. The silverroot blade was still lying there. Next to it on the stone was the silver locket. It had fallen from Lyra's neck during the chaos. The chain had broken. He bent down slowly. He picked up the locket. Not the blade. His hand was shaking. The boy let go of his mother's hand. He took 2 small steps toward Kale. Then a third. Then he stopped. He looked up at the man standing in the middle of the hall, covered in dust and blood and the smell of the deep north. And he said one word. "Father." A horn cut through the silence outside the walls. It was not the castle horn. It was not a wolf-blood horn. It was deeper, slower, a long, mournful sound that shook the windows in their frames. Lyra's face went white. Then a second horn. From a different direction. Then a third. Lyra grabbed Kale's arm. The first time she had touched him in 10 years. Her fingers were cold. Her voice was lower than a whisper. "It's not just Marek's men," she said. "He called the Red Cardinal." Kale's eyes shifted. Just for a second. Gold to red and back. "When?" he said. "A month ago. He sent a raven the day he heard you were walking south. Now here is where it turns. The Red Cardinal was not a wolf problem. The Red Cardinal was the Archbishop of the human kingdom that had been hunting wolf blood for 50 years. 200 soldiers under his banner. Every one of them carrying silverroot weapons. And Marek had invited them in. Personally. Through the front door. If the Red Cardinal walked out of that castle alive, no alpha would ever rule it again. This was no longer about a stolen crown. This was about whether the wolf-blood line itself would survive the night. The boy was still standing in the middle of the hall, looking up at him. Kale bent down on one knee. He looked at his son for the first time. Not as a king. As a father. "What's your name?" he said. The boy's voice was small. "Talos." Kale nodded once. "Talos. Listen to me. I need you to go with your mother right now. We will talk after. I swear it. Talos nodded. He didn't cry. He just nodded. Lyra picked him up. She turned to Kale. There is something else, she said. Something you do not know. Tell me. Vorik is alive. Kale did not move. The hall was very quiet. Where? The North Tower. He has been there for 9 years. In chains. Marek. Marek did not kill him. Marek imprisoned him. Marek made everyone believe he was dead because a dead Vorik is a hero who fell defending the throne. A living Vorik is a witness. To what? To the fact that the Silverroot blade your brother stuck in your back was not his idea. It was Marek's. He had Marek's mother in a wagon. He told Vorik to cut you down or watch his own mother burn. Kale stood up slowly. The world had been one shape a minute ago. It was a different shape now. His brother had not betrayed him. His brother had been used. His brother had been alive in this castle for 9 years. In chains. While Kale was in the snow. How long until they reached the gate? 20 minutes. Maybe less. Kale walked to the side door, the one Marek had run through. He didn't kick it. He pressed one hand flat against the wood. He shifted just enough that the muscles in his arm doubled. Then he pushed. The bar on the other side splintered. The door swung open. Take Talos to the wine cellar. The one with the false back. The one I showed you the year we bonded. Wait for me there. Do not come out for anyone except me. Understand? She nodded. And Lyra? Yes. Whatever you hear up here. Stay down there. I will. She turned and ran with the boy. Kale went the other way. Up. To the North Tower. 2 guards tried to stop him on the second landing. One of them got thrown over the rail and didn't make a sound until he hit the courtyard. The other was already running before Kale finished with the first. The cell at the top of the tower had a door of black iron. 3 locks. Kale ripped the locks off with his bare hands. The man inside was sitting on a stool by the small window. He was thin. His hair was white now, even though he was only 32. He had silver chains around both wrists. He turned his head. His eyes went wide. Brother, Vorik said. His voice cracked. Oh gods. Brother. Kale walked across the cell and crushed the chains. They came apart in his hands like wet paper. Vorik stood up. He grabbed Kale's shoulders. I tried to tell you. That night. I tried to. He had our mother. He had her in a wagon outside the camp. Kale. Brother. I am so sorry. Kale pulled him into a hug. Hard. Brief. Then he let go. Tell me later. We have to move. I can fight, Vorik said. Give me a sword. I've been sitting in this room for 9 years thinking about the day someone gave me a sword. Kale looked at his brother. He nodded. If you are still with me right now, hit that subscribe button. The next 10 minutes are where everything turns. They came out of the tower running. The horns outside were almost at the gate. They reached the courtyard just in time to see the great oak doors of the outer wall shudder under the first ram strike. Then the second. Then the third. The doors broke inward in a shower of splinters and iron. And the Red Cardinal walked into the castle of the Wolfblood Kings. The Red Cardinal was not a tall man. He was wearing a deep red robe with white trim, a white skullcap, a wooden cross at his neck. In his right hand, he carried a Silverroot staff that was taller than he was. The wood was pale and twisted. Behind him, 200 soldiers poured through the broken gate. every one of them in the white tabards of the church, every one of them carrying a silver-root weapon. Spears, swords, crossbow bolts coated in silver-root powder. The first bolts fired before anyone said a word. Vorik dropped low and rolled. Kale did not. A bolt hit his left shoulder and bounced. He had been ready for it. The shaman had taught him how to harden the shift on small spots. He tore the bolt out and threw it back. It hit the man who had fired it through the eye. Then the courtyard exploded. Kale shifted halfway and went forward. He went through the front line like a horse going through a wheat field. Spears snapped on his arms. Swords broke on his back. Men flew sideways. Men flew up. A few got knocked into the gate frame and didn't get up. Vorik picked up a fallen sword and went left. The years and chains had not taken everything out of him. He moved like a man who had been waiting to do exactly this. The red cardinal stopped in the middle of the courtyard. He raised the silver-root staff above his head. He started to chant. Kale felt it before he heard it. A pressure, something pulling at the shift, trying to lock it down, trying to do to him what the silver-root blade had done in the snow 10 years ago. But Greta had taught him this too. Kale stopped moving forward. He set his feet. He breathed slow. He shifted further. Not halfway. All the way. He had not done it in front of anyone in 10 years. The full alpha form came out of him like a sound coming out of the earth. 8 feet tall. Black fur shot with silver. Eyes like 2 suns. Bigger than 3 men. Bigger than any wolf the cardinal had ever seen. The chant in the cardinal's mouth stuttered. The pressure broke. Kale moved. He covered the courtyard in 3 strides. The cardinal got out one more word. Kale's claws closed around the silver-root staff. He snapped it. The staff came apart in 2 pieces. The cardinal stumbled backward. His back hit the gate frame. "You," the cardinal said, "are an abomination." Kale lifted him by the front of his robe. Off the ground. The cardinal's feet kicked. "You hunted my people for 50 years, Kale said. His voice was deeper than it had been in the hall. "You burned our shrines. You killed our cubs. You promised the kings of men that one day there would be no wolves left. And there will not be," the cardinal hissed. "You can kill me. Another will come." The church does not stop. Kale stared at him for a long second. Then he set the cardinal down. He let go. "Tell them," Kale said, "that the black sun has come back." He turned away. The cardinal stood there shaking. He looked around. His staff was broken. His army was being torn apart. He turned and ran. Nobody chased him. Behind Kale, the courtyard was a different place than it had been 4 minutes ago. The 200 had become 40. The 40 were dropping their weapons. They were kneeling. They were begging. Vorik was leaning against a column, breathing hard, a sword in each hand, blood running down his face. He was grinning. That was when Kale heard Lyra scream. It came from the keep. From inside. "Marek!" Kale went up the steps in 2 leaps. Through the door. Down the corridor. Toward the wine cellar. He didn't make it to the cellar. Marek was in the hallway above it. He had Talos by the back of the shirt. He had a knife at the boy's throat. Lyra was on her knees in front of him, blood on her face, a hand reaching out. Marek saw Kale come around the corner. "Stop," Marek said. "Stop right there." Kale stopped. "I will cut him," Marek said. "I will cut your son." Kale had shifted back to half form. He raised both hands open. "Marek," he said, "look at me. I am looking at you. Look at my eyes." Marek looked. In the second that Marek's eyes went up, Lyra's hand came up too. From her sleeve, a small dagger. Bone handle. The kind a noblewoman carries, and nobody searches her for. She drove it sideways into the inside of Marek's thigh. Right into the artery there. Marek made a sound that was not a word. The knife at Talos's throat dropped half an inch. That was enough. Kale was across the hallway in one step. He took Talos with one hand. He took Marek's wrist with the other. He twisted. Marek went sideways into the wall and slid down. The blood was already pooling on the floor. He had maybe a minute. Kale handed the boy to Lyra. She took him. She held him against her chest. Talos was crying. Not loud. Just shaking. Kale turned back to Marek. Marek was smiling. Even bleeding out on the floor, he was smiling. You think you won, Marek whispered. You think the kingdom will take you back. After 10 years gone. You. The ghost. Kale bent down. He picked the crown off the floor where it had rolled out of Marek's fall. He looked at it. It was scratched. Bent on one side. Stained with someone else's blood. He put it on his head. And Marek stopped smiling because he saw something he had refused to see for 10 years. The crown fit. The morning came slow. The sun rose over the eastern wall, and the courtyard was full of people who did not know what to do. Servants, soldiers, old women who had served 3 different rulers in a single decade. They stood in small groups. They watched the doors. Kale came out of the great hall just after dawn. He was wearing a clean tunic. His hair was tied back. The crown was on his head. Vorik walked at his right shoulder. Lyra walked at his left, with Talos's hand in hers. The courtyard went silent. Kale stood on the top step. He did not give a long speech. Long speeches are for men who need to convince. He didn't. My name is Kale Drakemore, he said. I am the son of Halmer Drakemore. I am the rightful Alpha King of these lands. I have been gone for 10 years. I have come home. He paused. He looked across the faces. The man who took my crown is dead. The man who locked my brother in a tower is dead. The cardinal who came to burn this castle to the ground has run back to his church. He will not come again soon. And if he does, he will find me waiting. A few old wolves in the back of the crowd began to weep. You have lived under a man who was not your king, Kale said. I will not punish you for that. You did what you had to do. So did she, he looked at Lyra. So did I. He took a breath. There will be no executions today. There will be no purges. There will be food. There will be water. There will be doctors for the wounded. We will rebuild what was broken. And tomorrow we will bury the dead. Wolf and man. All of them. With the rights that should have been theirs. He stopped. That was the speech. The courtyard erupted in a sound that was not quite cheering and not quite weeping. Something in between. The sound of people who had been holding their breath for a very long time and were finally allowed to let it out. Kale walked back inside. He did not go to the throne room first. He went to the small library on the 2nd floor. The one with the window facing east. The one his father used to read in. The books were still there. Dusty. Untouched. Marek had not been a reader. Kale sat in his father's chair for a long time. He did not open a book. He just sat. After a while, Lyra came in. She closed the door softly. She sat in the chair across from him. For a while, neither of them said anything. I wanted to tell you, she finally said. There was no way. He had men watching every raven that left this castle. He had men watching the boy. I know. I wore the locket every day, even when he beat me for it. Cale looked up. He beat you? Sometimes. When he was drinking. Less after Talos was born. He was afraid the boy would tell. Cale closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, there was nothing readable on his face. He is gone now. I know. You will never see another bad day in this castle. I know that too. She reached across the table and took his hand. He let her. Talos has been asking, she said. About what? About you. Since he was 4. He used to tell me you would come back. He used to say it like he knew. I don't know how he knew. Cubs know things, Cale said. Even when they don't know they know. She smiled a little for the first time. That sounds like something Greta would say. It is. That night, after the dead were counted and the wounded laid in beds and the courtyard finally quiet, Cale walked up to the parapet on the western wall. Talos came with him. The boy didn't ask. He just followed. They stood there for a while, looking out over the kingdom. The lanterns were coming on in the village below. Smoke rose from chimneys that had been cold for days. A dog was barking somewhere far away. Talos slipped his hand into his father's hand. Father, he said. Yes. Are you going to leave again? Cale looked down at him. No, he said. I am not. The boy nodded. He looked back out at the kingdom. After a moment he said, I felt something. Inside. When you came. I know. It was warm. It moved. That was the wolf, Cale said. It is going to come out one day. Maybe soon. I will be there when it does. Talos thought about that. Then he nodded again. They stood there until the moon came up. Down in the courtyard, Vorik was directing men to clear the broken gate. Lyra was tucking a wounded soldier into a clean bed. Greta, who had walked the 9 weeks behind Cale and arrived 2 hours after sunrise, was sitting by a fire teaching a young she-wolf how to brew a tea that would help with grief. Up on the wall, the black sun stood with his son. The door that had been kicked open the night before was being repaired by carpenters. By morning, it would hang on new hinges. It would be opened by a hand. It would be closed by a hand. It would not be kicked again. 10 years. 10 years he had been gone. He was home now. And he was not leaving.